For this read and reflect, we're looking at the article, The New California State Law, CIF Heat Policy Could Wreak Havoc on High School Football and Other Sports. And so one of the questions for this article is, what are some of the key concerns of coaches and and school administrators regarding the new policy? And so the CIF 503K is to address the heat, illness, and air quality index protocols. The CIF bylaws will cause delay and prevent games or practices in temperatures that exceed a certain threshold. And so in San Diego, per the article, it's going to be categories 1 to 3. Category 1 being 86.2 or cooler. Category 2 is going to be 89.9 or cooler, and category 3 is going to be 92 or cooler. And the key concerns of coaches is that a lot of these practices and games are going to be moved to either early morning or late nights, and that's also going to keep students at school for a large amount of time, like 10 to 12 hours. For them to either practice, either that's them being there early before classes or being there for classes and staying later for practices. And for the school administrator side of things, it's going to be difficult to kind of coordinate, practice times, given that, every school has to abide by these new rules. So because of that, the school administrators are going to have a difficult time coordinating practices, as well as, for all the athletes that have to practice within this certain time frame, either early morning, late night. Obviously, that's not going to work in between because students still have to go to school. So very limited on when they can practice. This will also affect the parents and the coaches when it comes to kids being picked up or dropped off early in the morning or late in the night, which is not sustainable or suitable for most working parents. One might prefer one or the other, but it might prevent students or parents from having their student participate in sports in general, because it would be difficult if they have to be there early in the morning or be picked up late at night, and even more so for students who can't drive, and parents are the only individual who can pick them up. And same for what goes for the coaches. They have other things they have to do throughout the day that limits their ability to be there early morning, late night, and so forth. And so these early morning and late night will affect students' also ability to sleep if they're staying up late for practice, staying throughout this whole school day for practice, and do homework. So that's going to affect the students and their ability to excel academically, as well as perform proficiently with the lack of sleep while trying to maintain their grades with doing sports. The next question is, the article highlights disparities between schools based on geography and climate. Do you believe the current classification system is fair? Why or why not? No, I don't believe that it's fair, given that the schools closer to the coast are going to be much cooler, plain and simple, here in San Diego, whereas schools on East County is going to be much warmer. I mean, even now we're entering October. We are in October, late October, and we're still having degrees that are 87 degrees roughly, which is still above the Cat 1. And that's kind of the big issue, is that I think these guidelines for San Diego might be more so for Cat 1, which is 86.2 or cooler, which easily would prevent practices. So I think in the article, it references that one of the coaches wanted to argue that it should be moved to category 2, 89.9 or cooler. And I think that'd be a bit more fair amongst the East County and coastal schools, given that, 89 seems like a more reasonable time to practice, and it allows for more flexibility um, for the East County schools to practice, given that all the coastal schools, plain and simple, are going to be cooler. Uh, the next question is, what are the potential impacts of these heat policies on student athletes? As I stated before, I mean, these major impacts are just going to be, the kids staying, waking up early to go to practice or staying late to go to practice, affecting their sleep, as well as affecting their ability to study properly. We're not even including nutrition of, these students having to manage the nutrition throughout the day through all of this, which I'm going to say most students aren't ideal at keeping on top of their nutrition. So, yeah, so I think these would have strong impacts on the students with these heat policies in place. If it stays at Category 1, maybe I'm confused by the article and assuming that all of San Diego or mostly San Diego is Category 1. But I think across the board, I think if it was Category 2, it'd be a bit more flexibility. And so the next question is, if you were a high school athletic trainer in coastal San Diego versus inland San Diego, how would you react to these guidelines? And I think I would react kind of like how I'm reacting now, is just simply that I don't think it's a fair across the board heat index, given that schools on the coastal side will be much cooler all the time, so practice can be any time throughout the day, where if I was an inland coach or an inland athletic trainer, I would have to monitor and assess the heat constantly in hopes that it's always going to be above and below, but also be the reason I have to tell the coaches, hey, they can't practice a day, the temperature, the wet bulb globe is above this degree, preventing students from practicing, delaying games, preventing, it would just create a difficult situation to be in as an athletic trainer, which would probably prompt me to go to schools that are more coastal, where I wouldn't have to worry about, being the bearer of bad news, or even, being that person who has to put myself in that situation where I have to, kind of, I guess, fib, if you will, the numbers in order to have the students, train or work with the coaches to kind of like, oh yeah, it's barely over, the degree, so we'll just have them drink more water. But then if something were to happen, then now that's a liability, that's a risk on us as an athletic trainer. So it wouldn't be good, I think, for athletic trainers. I think a lot of athletic trainers would probably go more coastal if that was the case. So yeah, I think that would be an issue, but I do hope that things do get moved towards, Category 2 across the board, makes it a bit more reasonable and flexible for a lot of the schools. All right, thank you.